All right, traders, good afternoon. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's live presentation. It is January 10th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and we are good to go. It's been a few weeks. We hope everyone's enjoyed bringing in the new year and is ready to make 2018 the best one yet, or, at least top 5, right? For those of you that are regular Shark viewers, welcome back. For any new viewers, we hope you get something out of this and you continue to tune in. And I just want to thank you all again for taking the time to be here. You could be doing anything, but you're spending this next bit of time with us, and we really appreciate that, and we're confident that you will too. Now, go ahead and type a Y in the chat if my audio is coming through all right. Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Cool. Okay, it's coming through. And everyone sees Shark Indicator's host screen, correct? Awesome. Thank you, William. Thank you, Sally. Okay, so for those of you that are first timers, my name's Ty. I'm one of the guys here at Shark Indicators. I've been with the company for a couple of years now. It's just been an awesome experience so far. We've been involved in the NinjaTrader ecosystem for over 5 years, and we develop some of the most capable trading tools in the industry. Now, that being said, like I always say, you've got to put in the work to hit your mark, right? So let's just take a quick look at the risk disclosure. Take a minute, read this over. Now, on top of documentation and weekly workshops, we like to show our audience what other NinjaTrader vendors and educators are doing with our software as well. So what we do for events like this is we bring in a variety of partners throughout the industry, so you all get some exposure to different trading methods and personalities in conjunction with our tools. Now, each one of these presenters is successful in their own right, and each offers a unique trading style. So let's dive into today's topic, which is finding tradable setups with the iCinDER cycles, velocity, and market forces. So just a brief intro for today's presenter and iCinDER's founder, Raul Jimenez. Raul is one of our most seasoned partners, bringing over 25 years of trading and development experience, as well as an extensive background in both business administration and computer information systems. In his early years, like many other traders, he realized that to answer the questions of market cycles and market timing, there was a need for repeatable solutions that would incorporate tools from different traders and developers across the ecosystem. So his journey eventually led him to coding his trading and analysis methodology into the family of iCinDER indicators that we're going to see today. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic and the screen over to you, Raul.
Thank you, Ty, and it is very much appreciated that you're all joining me today. One of the things that, well, excuse me a second. Let's switch over here. How about a sound check? I wanted to make sure that we have sound at this point. You should be seeing my screen now. Okay, excellent. My name is Raul Jimenez. I've been the, I guess, developer and the person doing the architecture for iCinDER traded indicators. I have been a partner with Shark for quite a number of years, and I thank them all for this presentation and the opportunity to talk to all you traders today. So let's jump into this right now. First of all, we're going to have the disclaimer just like we've always done, and Ty already went ahead and read that, so you can take a quick look here. That is being displayed for you. And we'll jump on the presentation. It's actually going to be a bit lengthy because we have to cover quite a number of items. Ty went ahead and he already covered quite a number of things in reference to my background. I worked for a very large software company, and one of the key things that I did for them was basically working with data visualization, which is nothing more than looking at specific data and trying to find different ways in which it can be manipulated and show different type of information. Out of that, what I did is I came out with one single algorithm at one time, which was called iCinDER. This was back to 2006. And there were a number of algorithms developed off of that. Now, the methodology that I use, at least for what the cycles do, they measure cycles, or the software measures cycles. It measures velocity, and it attempts to ascertain trend direction and market strength. So we're going to go and jump over to the next slide here. And one of the things is on the agenda, new and updated iCinDER technical analysis indicators or software packs. And as we go through that, we will cover why the new updates. I'll give you a little bit of background on that. So I started trading basically with the software in 2006. That's when it was coded. And out of that, there were a number of derivatives that were created. I spent about 3.5 years with a private equity firm. And with them, I spent a lot of time basically looking at the internal market forces, a lot of market profile, and developing a number of indicators for them. So the new update somewhat leverage some of the information that I learned through those years. And so it tries to take the cycles, velocity, and it adds to the new update the internal market forces. And that's because the belief of mine, at least, is that the market forces actually do allow you to see direction, the amount of interest in the market, and the price fluctuation. So we'll jump through all those things. The next thing that we'll talk about is the NTA development, because everybody always asks, where are we with NTA development? All the software that's created here is in the final stages of the conversion to NT8. And about the 22nd of February, they'll all be launching. As we look through basically the scenario as a trader, what do we find? We find actually that we have a lot of challenges. And this goes from the beginning. When I started trading, there were challenges. In other words, what tools should you use? What should the tools do for you? Do you have understanding of what the tools do? What is the probability of you being successful when you're trading against algorithmic systems? You as a retail trader. The market being fractal in nature, it itself has built-in cycles. The issue is, what do you use? I mean, on this chart here, I threw a number of moving averages and EMA, the EMA, T3, CMO, pivots, RSI, and you see this, they all can tell you different information, right? But what do they measure and what is the output? Because if you don't know what the software is doing, is it doing momentum? Is it doing velocity? Is it measuring internal forces of the market? By knowing those things, it allows you to obtain the leverage and edge that you need to be able to trade effectively. So if we look at the perspective of momentum, I actually put two momentum indicators. One of them is momentum, which is clearly defined. And you all know by the name that is a momentum indicator, but so is the MACD. The MACD is a momentum indicator. So the crossovers, in many cases, will tell you the direction of the market or the strength of the market as it crosses over zero, when it's overbought, oversold, and so on. Let's jump now and look at velocity. If you take momentum, which is basically when you're sitting in the car and you press the accelerator, and you were basically standing still, you press the accelerator, and then the car starts moving. And that instantaneous movement that takes place at that moment when you press the accelerator is momentum. But then the rate at which the momentum increases becomes velocity. So what I did here is I put two specific items. I put momentum, but if you take the momentum of momentum, you basically end up with velocity. And you can see actually that the crossovers take place at different locations, that the amount of time at which velocity remains above zero or below zero is totally different from momentum to velocity. So in essence, you actually have two views. So if you have a momentum indicator, it's giving you that initial acceleration, initial move. But you have a velocity indicator, it's telling you the rate at which that momentum is increasing. So those are things that you have to look. So now we talked about two things. Let's talk about the next one. We have also, and this I spent many years doing this, looking at internal market forces. And you figure, well, what are those forces? Well, you can ascertain them by looking at level two. So when you look at level two, you can see areas where there's a bid and an ask. Where are people willing to engage at price levels in the market? Then you have other things like the delta, which is actually the red. The actually is the last pane there. And delta tells you specific things. I did leave momentum and velocity there, one over the other on the chart, just to show the difference between an internal market force and something that is momentum type indicators. The other things, as time progresses and the transactions start taking place, you can look at time and sales. So now you're looking at internals of the market, the forces that can help you ascertain sentiment. The other thing is the little hash mark that you see there, which is actually yellow on each of the price bars. That is showing you the point of control. That is the level at which the traders during that specific period of time, if it's a time-based bar or a volume-based chart, that is where most interest was in trading, where the largest amount of volume traded. Those type of things can help you to ascertain the possible direction of the market. The last thing is government P on the right-hand side, so you actually get a view of where most of the transactions are taking place throughout the day. So those are the internal market forces, and the internal market forces are essential in ascertaining sentiment. Sentiment, along with the other indicators that you may have, can allow you to have an edge in your trading in the market. So as we talk about trading challenges, and we've talked a little bit about this, we want to find out, this is what we all want to know. We want to know the bias of the market. We want to know traders' sentiment. So what I've done through the years that I traded, I have blended the cycles, the velocity, and internal market forces into a suite of indicators that go back to 2006, and the last set of them, the ones that are internal market forces, and only derivatives. In other words, the original algorithm was used and the input is internal market forces. So it is my belief that these indicators can help you and can provide you an edge in your trading. So let's go and talk through each of them so we can actually figure out what they are and what they do. The first suite of indicators, and which this is actually the largest and most important piece of the package, is the internal market forces. And it has a cycles internal market forces, a depth analyzer, heat map, market force, trend guide RT, which goes back to 2006 to ascertaining the direction of the market and trading points. Trend guide XP, which is actually a heat map, and it is a tool that can take the qualifying factors that you have and basically ascertaining where they are in a bullish or bearish bias, and then going across the whole gamut of them and say, okay, we have tested X number of indicators that measure this different type of things, and we're telling you at this point that the likelihood of a bullish market is there or a bearish market. The last one is the Trend Guide XP9. And the XP9 came into being in that I was looking for certain information and I had certain qualifying factors and I wanted to plug them into BloodHound. So the easiest way of doing it is, instead of taking 6 individual tests or dimensions of the XP9, I took that information and I put them into a single indicator that all it does is spits out a bull or a bear. That's it. So in essence, when you plug that into BloodHound, it is faster to trade. In other words, it works better. You don't have a lot of excess baggage there. The other thing the XP9 can do for you, and that is that it can be used by the visual or for the visual trader. So those were the things that were created there and that's set. Now, I said that originally it started with cycles, and cycles cycles actually take different amounts of time to basically go from a trough to a peak to a trough, almost like a sine wave. So you have three different types of cycles that I have. One of them is the S, which is the minor cycle. The dot iCinDER V to I, is an intermediate cycle. And iCinDER V to M is a major cycle. So basically, they have a forward look into cycles in the market. So at the very beginning, the way this was used is instead of having three different charts with the same indicator on each chart, by manipulating the algorithm, the V2 algo, you could actually change it. So it would look at the minor, a longer time frame, intermediate, and a longer, time frame that would be basically the major cycle. The other pieces is I wanted to ascertain how each bar was moving and what the true range was, but I didn't like the true range algo. So I coded one called the Ranger. And the Ranger, basically you put it on this one called Ranger Band and Ranger Bar, which you put it in any chart and it can tell you basically on a time-based chart what is the approximate value of a bar. If I know the approximate value of a bar, that means I can say, okay, if two bars go against me and each bar is worth basically 5 ticks, on the NASDAQ, it would be $5, $25. I know that if it goes 3 bars against me, I got $75 of risk or $75 that it could go against me. And then I can multiply times the number of contracts and get an idea of what my risk level is going to be. The next thing that I looked at was the velocity indicators. And the velocity indicators have bands, have a standard deviation band, which is almost like a support and resistance. Thanks for that note. We are going to look through all of this. I just had to give you the background because if you don't know what the tool does, this is my take. How can you effectively use the tool? Because there are hundreds of tools out there and they each tell you that they can do something for you. I'm telling you how they work so you can ascertain how they will work for you. So the velocity bands just took it one step ahead and gave a little bit more visualization to the system. All three of those packages are what is called the iCinDER MF, or market forces. So it includes cycles, velocity, and market forces, of course. Now, I've given you a tremendous amount of information, talked a lot, and so you figured out, well, when is he going to show me something? So we're going to jump into a demo and we're going to look to the specific parts. So let me go over here and switch over. Okay, this is a very large screen. And what you're seeing here is the end product. There's actually a BloodHound template here. So I'm going to touch through some of the indicators that we have here. Let's go ahead and just maximize this. On the top frame, we're actually looking at the internal market forces. And the internal market forces are the point of control in each bar, which help me to look at sentiment. Then you have, and I'll touch through each of them. You have the internal market forces cycles. And this particular one, you actually have a choice on how you can set it. I usually run at 3 EMA, and it can actually give you a point of control moving average. Over here, set at 8, which is kind of tight. It kind of follows price quite well. I generally would turn it off and basically use the chart that way. So I'm showing you here the chart and how I use it. Now, the other thing that you have here is a GOM MP. I want to see from top to bottom where price has been trading throughout the whole day. And the next thing that I have here, and I basically had to make some modifications here to look at this. What you're seeing at this in this area right here, you're actually seeing level 2. And you have 10 levels to the top side, 10 levels to the downside, and you see a specific amount of volume at bid and volume at ask. If I was to look at here, of course, you know, the market is closed right now, but when it closed, the last time that it closed, you had 35 contracts at 66.78 on the NASDAQ. As you trade throughout the day, those values will be changing. So the bold value, 35 and 27, is the area at which the market is forcefully trading within that area. So at least here you have, you know, 51% is people that are making, or they're buyers. Those people are buyers. And on the very top, you basically have supply, on the bottom, demand, 51% demand. And those things will actually, this measures the sentiment of the market to a certain extent, and it tells you which way the market could tilt. But there's information is coming in so fast that this actually is almost a moving target, but it can give you specific information as to how to trade. The next thing on the bottom, you actually have 3 cycles. You have the V2. This is actually called the V2 bands. And this is the minor cycle, and it does have like a little band, which is it's actually standard deviation band of 1, multiplier of 1 standard deviation. So it helps you to see when the indicator is actually moving out of, let's say, standard movement or a range bound area. The other thing is the intermediate and the major are there. One called Trend Guide XP. And the last one is, yeah, the Trend Guide XP. All it does actually look at quite a number of values. There are actually 14 values that is looking in dimension. And then out of those, it will tell you when there's a bullish or bearish bias. As we go along and you have questions, just post them, and in time we will go ahead and get to all those. The last thing you have there is BloodHound, of course. Now, let me go and minimize this here a bit. Put it back where it was. You probably say, why are you looking at a 150-second chart? It's the fastest chart that I can look at. And what I am doing is I am taking signals from a 385 volume bar. This is all taking place inside BloodHound. I am looking at a 290 tick bar, an 870, and a 1449. I'll touch as we go to the progression of the webinar as to how I came up with those numbers, because those numbers were not plucked from air. And those numbers have statistical validity. So it does measure to a certain extent the market, the volatility of the market. Out of that, it actually goes and looks at volume or looks at tick, and it says, okay, here are possible values that you could use at this time to match the specific movements of the market to a month or to a season. So the seasonality has been taken into a measurement here. If you pluck numbers from air, and this is my take, if you just pluck numbers from air and you say, oh, I'm going to make the top 160, the next one 90, and the other one 2000. Numbers plucked from air. You're trying to force into the market itself the specific values that you want to measure. Whereas the market may be trading within a certain range of volume, or certain range of volume at ticks. So by changing this, again, is a way of obtaining edge. So what did I do? Okay, what we did is on this called the MTF, multi-time frame XP9, which has a product from Tradeable, the indicator reader. And the indicator reader is allowing me to read all this information without loading BloodHound with all this extra stuff. I can put this on any chart that I want to. And it's going to tell me when there's a bullish bias. And you can see a signal here, 1455, or a bearish bias. So what am I doing? And so in this moment, I think I'll need to talk about the XP9. The XP9 is looking at 2 different things. Item 1, 2, and 3 is looking at the minor, the intermediate, and the major of a cycle. It's looking at the slope of all those three. And the slope has to be either positive or negative. It is looking at the slope of the point of control and the moving averages of the point of control. And if they have a positive bias or a slope, positive slope, it will mark as there being a signal for a long. I'm going to just go ahead and put this up. And I made it so that you could actually use it as a visual tool also. So I can actually have it paint all. So now it starts, the signal triggered right here at 1528, 328. It stayed long. Then because of this little movement right here, it changed. So the signal failed because one of those items that being tested did not give a positive bearish bias or a negative bullish bias. The areas in gray are generally areas where there's some type of consolidation or change in market direction. The teal and blue, which is actually this is the internal market force cycle, can be used as a support tool. In other words, how much risk do I want to take? How far am I going to allow this to come down? And the one that holds the longest is actually the major cycle, which is the gold line. So even though you have a corrected pattern over here, you have basically a bearish bias, it held at the major cycle and then it kept on going. So this area right here at 1518 through 1525 was a corrected pattern. And you can see actually there was consolidation, moved down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 movements or 5 A, B, C, D, E, F. You could go and look at this like Elliott, like an Elliott wave, and that's a 5-wave correction. Then it continues over here. So basically, in essence, if I go like this and I put, let's say I want to be a visual trader, I do not want to automate things. I can put this here and have the band extend. So here's bullish. Over here, I don't have confirmation of a bullish bias. Over here, I don't have a green bar, so therefore I don't have confirmation. I don't have confirmation over here. So therefore, would I take that trade? The answer is I am not going to take that trade. I'm going to wait a little bit longer. So what we're doing is taking multi-time frame, looking at volume, and I'll ask the question to myself and I'll answer the question for you. Why, RJ, why Raul, what do you use? Why volume? And it goes like this. Volume is the force that pushes price in the market. If I look at volume, in some cases, volume is able, the same amount of volume is able to move price in a large range or in a short range. If it moves in a large range, now you know that you may have either interested for a bullish or a bearish bias. It's a thrust bar. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentations, and we'll continue with this, and we'll come back again to it. I don't see any questions, so either I lost everybody or everybody went to sleep. So there are 3 individual packages, the cycles VF, velocity, force, and the cycles MF. So what is the MF? Market forces. So we're looking at 3 different types of views of the market, 3 different types of visualizations. Is that going to give me an edge if I look at them? It's just like, okay, let's say that you're using, 3, 4, 5 indicators, and those indicators measure different type of things. That means, in essence, that you have confirmation from 3 different visualizations, which should give you stronger bias as to when you trade more. You feel more confident when you trade, when you have things that you look at different ways, and now you either go in the market or you go short or whatever. So I built all this from the very beginning, and this is, I'm going to give you a little bit of history, and then you could say, okay, why did you decide to start offering your products? Because the indicators were offered in other platforms. And so I had a customer who had purchased my software on another platform, and he actually had looked at BloodHound. And he said to me, "Oh, you got to look at this great tool, BloodHound. You can take your indicators and you can do such and thus." So what I did is I looked at BloodHound. In a matter of a day, I took my at least 3 of my indicators and I coded them over for Ninja, because I am a coder, and I've been basically writing code since, well, long time ago, like 1981. So the first thing that I did is build them to be used with BloodHound. And that was the sole focus. It gave me a tool that would allow you to visualize data in any shape, in any form, and I could quickly be. The alternative is this. The alternative is I had to write all the code, write all the if this, if that, and then I come out with a product that tells me long or short. But if I use BloodHound, I can say whatever indicator I have, what is it gonna do? What's, for me? How, when I put all this and I tie them together, they visualize something. They give me a bullish or a bearish bias. They give me confidence to trade, confidence to sit for a day and not trade, or to take a short. So originally, that was the reason that I built them for BloodHound. The other thing is they're multi-time frame ready. And that's the whole focus, to take multiple time frames, make sure they all agree, and they tell you whether or not you should go long or short. Now let's go and touch on something else. And this actually goes to, Raul, why do you use certain values? So there's this tool that I created, and this actually goes back to 2006 also. It was modified, let's see, in 2008. Then what it would originally do, and I was trading range bars and Renko. So what I did is I wrote the piece of software that would allow me to look at the market, look at certain number of things, and it would tell me what range bar to use for oil. And oil would probably say 6. And gold, it would be 6 or 7. And then on the NASDAQ, it would be 12. So I could actually take the market, analyze it, and I could trade with a value that would be my attempt to gain an edge in my trading. So later on, what happened is as I went and I worked with the private equity firm, and I basically did learn a couple of things, at least one major thing. And remember this, the most important level in the market, whether it be at a bar level, at a number of bars in a day, is the point of control. The point of control can help you assess sentiment. So what I did is I took information. I said, okay, let's go ahead and come up with something that will give us the value for volume. And I would have like a volume bar. You see that volume one plus SD, standard deviation, volume bar 2 and volume bar 3. So I could actually trade using volume bars and look at the 3 different periodicities and see if they agreed. The next thing that I did, and this actually Daniel Rowe from Trade the Plan was the one who actually gave me the idea to do this. We were talking one day, and we were talking about um, tick bars and what tick bars values to use. And So I said, well, let me go there and look at my algorithm and see my algorithm can actually go through and give me values for tick bars. So I've been providing this information to my customers for probably now, I believe it's since about October of last year. And the information is this. Every week on a Monday, I provide you with the volume bar value. I provide you with a tick bar value. And you would generally use this for the whole week. I provide you with an update every week, Monday AM, and the values change weekly based on volatility and other market movement in the week or month. So you get new monthly values, and this is the new part of this thing here. And the subscription service doesn't break you. It's only $120 a year. So let me go and mention what you have there. You're seeing ST dev volume. That's the standard deviation of volume. That is a value that is, let's call it the noise level. It's one standard deviation of price that moves up and down within a bar. The next one is the bar one. The bar one is the regular bar that is being measured. So this is like the standard bar. But if you take the standard bar and you say, how much noise is in that standard bar? How much could it move up and down? And then you say, well, it could move up and down by the standard deviation. So let's take crude oil. 359 is the standard deviation volume, and 1101 is volume bar one. If you add them together, you come up with 1460. It's in red. So if you want to trade oil, you would do 1460 for your volume chart. The next thing that I did is, this is again because of that friend of mine who kind of made me think about tick bars. And so I said, okay, let's go ahead and take oil. And you see 359 is the same amount as the standard volume deviation. So then they calculated volume bar one, 1073, 3218, and 5364. Those are my three tick charts that I look at along with the volume chart that would help me by looking at this information through BloodHound as to whether or not I have a bull or a bear, whether I need to go long or go short. So the next thing that I did, and this is actually new, and I'm going to just put all the information. So the most important part here is this, the last line. Suggested reading, The Logical Trader by Mark Fisher. So this goes like this. At the beginning of the month, generally there's a tremendous amount of volume that is measured or traced in the market. If I take that as a premise, that's indicative of how much volatility there could be in the market, how much interest there is in the market. And I take that information and I parse it with the same algorithm as I mentioned before. But this time it's looking at the beginning of the month, first 2, 3, 4 days, and specific amounts of volume. And then it goes ahead and it does the same thing. It gives you the same numbers. If you were to look at this here, you find out, remember that, let me go back and let's look at the numbers. So we got 1464 for oil, for crude. So let's go back here. And over here we have 1460. So you see that the change was not a lot, but some of the other values changed. So what is this going to do for you or for me? What does it do for me? Well, I could actually use these values over here for the whole month and trade with those values for the whole month. And they would be, in essence, tied to what took place within the last 2.5 months or so. And it's looking at the fluctuations there. And then it's giving me values that could be indicative of values that I could use for a whole month for trading. Now, every month, needless to say, at the beginning of the month, you're going to have to change your charts again. But if you can gain an edge by changing those values, would you not do it? I do. So now, this is kind of a little recap. The items in yellow, take a screenshot of this. The items in yellow are the ones that are on a chart, the basic chart that I trade. I know there are a lot of other indicators, and the other indicators give you different views of the market, different visualizations. The ones that I use the most are the ones marked in yellow. And those were actually on the chart. So if I want to set up the main chart, on the price pane, I put cycles, internal market forces, which is the three lines that look like they could be moving averages of something. The next one is a depth analyzer, which is showing me the volume at bid, the volume at ask, and all those participants that are offering and all those participants that are willing to buy. The next thing on the velocity force panel, we have iCinDER V2 bands, iCinDER V2 intermediate and major. And that's the area, you see actually the crosshairs are showing that on the secondary area. The next thing is on the analysis pane, all the way at the bottom, is Trend Guide XP9. And then I have Ranger Bar. So if you just look at Ranger Bar, let me take a little sip here. My throat's getting a little bit dry. So what does Ranger Bar tell me? I don't know what the periodicity is here that I was using. I'm pretty sure it was volume bars. It's telling me that the average bar there is 8 ticks. And you can see 66.75. You can tell by the price that that is actually the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ, the average bar is 8 ticks times 5 is $40. Each bar is worth 40 bucks. 3 bars against me is $120. If I allow it to go 3 bars, in other words, if I'm trading and say, okay, lowest low 3 bars ago, I'm probably looking at $120 of risk. So can you control risk you doing this? Absolutely. And that's the reason that actually I wrote that little indicator. And it all seems, just like simple things and ideas, but all of them were tools that I wanted to try. I was looking for, what if I knew this? What if I knew that? How can I look at this in a different way so that I can get this information that I want? And so that's how all these things evolved. The other thing I put in there is the GOM and P, which is an optional thing, and volume up down. The other thing is you're going to look at multiple charts. The other charts are going to be tick charts. The tick chart setup is a simple, just 2 indicators, nothing heavy. Bar type, GOM and P if you want to look at the actual profile. And I didn't spell iCinDER correctly. iCinDER day range, which is an indicator that I wrote. And basically it looks at the high and the low of the day, and it puts a mark at the high and the mark at the low, red and green. And what that is doing is forcing the profile to show the whole day. On the analysis guide, I got Trend Guide XP9 and the Ranger bar. So whatever chart this was, which was 1449 ticks, the average bar was worth 22 ticks. This is the NASDAQ again. Actually, no long bad glasses. 21 ticks. 5 times 20 is 100 times 105. So each bar is basically worth $105. See what I'm getting at this? I can look at periodicities and I can see, well, is this basically costly at this level to trade or not? So by doing that, I could have probably changed the tick values if I was just using the analysis, or my timing value if I'm using minutes or whatever, and say, okay, at which level am I looking at a bar that's worth 6 ticks? And you can basically reverse engineer it, go backwards and change the periodicity until you get a value there that you like. Volume up, down is optional. So at this point, let's go hunting. Okay, so let's go back and change again. Okay, we're back at screen number 3. let's just look at a number of things. Let's say this is my basic setup. My basic chart, which basically is going to look at every 385 volume, and it's going to paint the bar. I'm looking at the other bars to see whether there's disagreement with them. I'm looking at the tick bars. I'm going to pull something up for you right now and show you. Okay, it's hiding behind something else. Hold on a second. If you want to take a shot of this is actually the periodicity guide. These are the values that are useful for this week. I want to show you actually both of them. And you can see the difference then. I'm going to put that one to the left. Just go like this. That should be about 50%. Let me put the other one, then you guys can take a screenshot. The other one is the monthly guide. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll expand it for you. You can take a shot of this and you can see the values changing. Like an example, crude oil, 1073, 3212, 1070, 3209, 5349, 8558, 1460, 1464. And you can see some of them, there's a little bit of change between the monthly and the one that was measured on January the 8th. This was measured, I believe it's on January the 5th. So I'm going to take them off now. So this is how I get my values. So the values that you actually saw a while ago on the NASDAQ, which was 29, let's see, in the NASDAQ, it was, NQ, what are you? 385. On the NASDAQ weekly, it was 392. So I'm using the monthly values. There it is, yeah, 385. Let me show you. Okay, here we go. This is how simple this gets, okay? I am leveraging the reader. So I have put a time session solver in case I want to trade only at specific times. Trend guide XP9. This one is looking at 385 volume. The second one is looking at 290 ticks. Third one is looking at, here's 870 ticks. And C is looking at 1449 ticks. Okay. Now the nodes, and I'll put this, show this here. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but this is the trend guide XP. In other words, looking at the three different time frames. They get ended. I am blocking. I put a signal blocker there. I get the results. So that's it. I didn't have to go solvers and click on chart and put multiple time frames here and then put each of the indicators there. So I'm making things as light as I can on BloodHound, so we have higher efficiency in our trading. This is distributed, and the thing is that I'll distribute them. Each of them, you have to create this for each individual chart group in the workspace. You can't just say I'll use the NQ and change the symbol here. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But I tend to trade only like 2 or 3 symbols, so it makes it easy for me to just make the changes on a weekly basis. Yeah, I did put the year, Stephen. Yeah, I did put 2017 because I forget that the year is 2018. At the beginning of the year, it's kind of hard to figure out whether the is a tight year or a loose year. I'm going to jump to something else again, and we're going to do a good amount of Q&A when we get through this. I did post to the entire audience on the chat a while ago. I'll post it again. There's a follow-up webinar. And the reason being is that given the time that we have, there's no way we can actually go extensively through Q&A or even through the process of taking one of these workspaces and changing them, which is something that you really need to know to be able to actually use the tool effectively. So we're going to go through the set, basically in action, setups and analysis and bonus indicator. If you go there, you click there, it's going to take place tomorrow. So let's jump on to the next slide. And this is, I want to get the close done before 5:30 so that we can actually just have a good amount of time to talk. So the way that this works is like this. You get the iCinDER cycles multi-frame, or sorry, the market force, which includes the cycles, the velocity force, and then of course market force. You get support and training and webinars, and you get BloodHound templates. Now, the BloodHound templates are installed by default, even if you do not have BloodHound. You do need to own BloodHound, and most of you who are here on this BloodHound webinar know that. Now, the regular price is $11.95. So what I did, I gave it a 25% discount for this specific webinar, and the cost is $300, or $300 off. So it's $8.95. Then I created a bundle, and the bundle is a little bit more extensive because it's got a couple of things. It's got the MF, or in other words, the cycles, market force. It has shark indicators, BloodHound Ultimate, and also along with that, you get Trade the Plan Indicator Reader, which is that cost of $595. Altogether, if you put all those, is a bundle price of $2,585, which is a bit hefty, but we're going to provide you with a 26.7% discount. So you save $690. So the price is $18.95. The offer will expire on Friday, January the 12th. If you connect to either iCinDERtrader.com or iCinDERtrader.com/shark, and once we finish through all this, I'll go back and I'll show you that. You'll have the opportunity there to buy. It's basically 3 packages, but I didn't want to take and make this just so hard to understand. So I think it's easy to understand now. You either get the full package, or you have BloodHound Ultimate, plus my indicators, market force, and everything else, plus Trade the Plan Indicator Reader, which I believe is essential to be able to use that correctly. Uh, the link for Shark was put there also. So let's go ahead and jump on to the next slide. And you're saying, okay, we're going to do some Q&A next, but how do I contact Raul Jimenez? The original company is called RJ5 Group. So you can get me through Skype, RJ5 Group. You can send me email at iCinDERtrader@rj5.com. Or you can go to the links in iCinDERtrader and contact me that way. Or you could put support at iCinDERtrader. If you send me some note there, say, hey, I want to know when the next classes are going to be available, send me a note when they're going to take place, I will go ahead and do that for you. So at this point, I'm going to just basically jump off the presentation and go to questions. Okay. If you wanted a discount for BloodHound itself, if you have a BloodHound Ultimate already, you just buy this rest of the software for $8.95. It does not include the software from Trade the Plan. Let me go back and again let me switch here. Let's pop up a browser. Okay, nice NinjaTrader. You can actually read a little bit there if you want to know more about each of the indicators. That's a good amount of info. iCinDER Shark promo. This is going to be there only through Friday evening, the 12th. Then it'll go away. But here's the way that it works out. I already have BloodHound. Okay, your price is $8.95. I don't have the indicator reader. Contact me and I will see what I can do to provide you the indicator reader. Would see if I can get you a little bit of a discount on that. The next thing is just I'm not interested in any of the stuff. I just want iCinDER and BloodHound Ultimate. So the price for that is $14.90, 25% discount. And the next one is the big one, which includes not only BloodHound Ultimate, but the indicator reader. How about some questions? Okay. Let me show you something here. Let's say that I want to learn about each individual package and what they do for me. Okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and pop this up. You need the indicator reader to make things flow a lot easier with BloodHound, because BloodHound, if he has to load the volume and the tick bars, you're going to have them already in the chart. Now you're loading that information again in BloodHound. More of the resources in your computer are going to be used up. Let me go ahead and show you something here. Okay, so let's say that I want to know about each of the individual indicators. I do have a lot. So let's go ahead and go by name and go to iCinDER. iCinDER cycles. So let's say I want to just know about the cycles. I want to click open. These are all the cycles, the minor, intermediate, and so on. But the interesting thing here is you can actually go through. There's a number of logics that are built. I say I want to see the slopes of the V2. Let's press F5. Let's recalculate. So that's the slopes of the V2 changing. Let's say that I want to look at the stochastic of V2 minor. The stochastic changes. So each of the packages has this. If you have BloodHound, you can look through them and you can see when are the cycles above zero or below zero. Bullish or bearish biasable 3 cycles. When are the velocity bands or the stochastic V2 minor? So it builds on, and so you have cycles And you also have, I'm having a bit of a problem with the mouse actually here. Cycles, the other one is called cycles, iCinDER. Cycles market force. Okay, here we go. Hmm. I changed something obviously on the programming. Basically, what I have a number of I have like cycles, and then I have cycle VF and cycles MF, and they build upon each other. And it's basically for you to learn like when the let's say the intermediate slope, when does it change? So let's go ahead and no logic. So now I'm looking at the intermediate V2 minor price versus the velocity band green. So it helps me to learn what each of the indicators does and how it reacts according to the movement of the market price. No, you can do currencies as well. This is the reason for joining me in the other classes, because originally when I used this, I was actually basically doing position and swing trading. So by changing the periodicity, and the numbers are calculated again by the periodicity guide, you can actually look at longer time frames. The 120 subscription for the market analyzer, Frank, just go ahead and send me an email to support, or RJ. Let me just put it here: support at iCinDERtrader.com, and I'll send you that information. The next webinar is tomorrow, which is a follow up on this, and we'll go more in depth. I mean, we'll start, I believe, at 11:30, but we can go as long as we need to. Um, the um, the thing is that like all these indicators took a long time to develop. I started trading about 1989, and so I believe it was. And I went through all that. Let's find what indicator works best. Let's find this. Let's find that. And I, eventually what ended up happening, I says, I don't like any of these indicators. I don't believe they actually show me what I need to have. So therefore, I went ahead and I started doing it all by hand. Then later in 2006, after I left Microsoft, I went. Um, I basically took a month, and in a month, I basically programmed all the indicators that I've been doing by hand, and I used that code. The other thing that you can do is you can use the trend guide. One of them actually, you can usually in a scanner, and originally this was done as a scanner in TradeStation, in Radar. And what it would do is it would tell you like a T1, T2, T3, and a bullish or bearish bias. And I use that for options. So I would do options in the money, 5 contracts, and I would wait for it to hit T1 or T2. And then after that, I would just exit. And that was generally, usually like $70 to $90 per contract in a day, because I never held any position at that time. Uh, So depending on what periodicity you use, it will give you a different view. I've used it for ETFs. ETFs, you need to have 200,000 volume or more. I used it just for regular stocks. I have some customers that used it even in a longer area. Uh, Shaded area indicator. The shaded area indicator is the XP9. Actually, this is the XP in this case, not the XP9. The XP actually looks at a little bit more information. Actually, that's the XP9, sorry. The XP was in one of the other charts. But we can cover all this stuff tomorrow. Because the XP, let me just show you something here. Okay, so we have here's, you could take a screenshot of this. The indicator, which is called the XP, is actually looking at the cycles. Are they above or below zero? The cycles, do they have a slope, major, minor, intermediate, positive or negative? The point of control slopes, the point of control versus the minor cycle of the internal market force, point of control versus intermediate market cycle of the market force, and the major. Where are they in relation? The point of control in relationship to the point of control cycle's directional bias, and then aggregates the signal into 14. That has 14 items in it. I'll pop that in. Trend guide, SRT. I believe it's this one. No, that one's just have 3. That's T1, T2, and T3. That's support and resistance. I took it off of this computer. I can put it back tomorrow. Anyway, out of my trading, what came up is, or the guidance that I obtained, by trading over multiple years, is to look at a specific things, qualifying factors. Once you have the qualifying factors, just go ahead and put them in code, do the test in the code, and then provide the single output to BloodHound. Next to the bottom, not the bottom. You're talking about this one that has the green and red? Okay, that one that's called the Trend Guide XP9. That's the one that is looking at the slope of the cycles indicators and the slope of the internal market forces cycles indicators. The goal in this one, I'll go ahead and I'll stretch it, and you'll be able to visualize what I'm talking about. Let me go ahead. And when the slope of the point of controls is changing, when the slope of the cycles is changing, it's indicative of a change in market direction. Sometimes you have a thrust bar like you did here, and you kind of catch it late. But the bottom line is, it can actually look at that. It likes to look at the slopes, because the slopes are telling you sentiment and the market direction change. So that's how it actually figures out all this, bull or bear. So if we go back to, let's go to like 9 o'clock this morning. The NASDAQ opened 927. Big move here. This is a volume bar. Actually, this is 150 seconds. In 150 seconds, it moved from 47 to 65. Huge move. Kind of consolidates. You can see prices stayed above those cycles. Then it broke down. Here's the crossover on the minor cycle, a little dot. Then the crossovers of the other cycles happen here. But the slope of them is still negative. And rather than looking at, do they cross over zero line, do they do this or that, it's easier to look at the slopes. The slopes do tell you a bit more information than just basically trying to figure out, well, What is taking place? Is it crossing over here? Is it doing this? And so all those questions that I ask myself, I just say, why do I need to ask those questions myself? If I'm trading like this, look at this. If I'm trading and I'm looking at all these charts, and I'm looking what? Let's say 3 instruments, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm looking at 15 charts, and I'm trying to make a decision as to whether to trade long or short. And even though I may have callers over here telling me long or short, well, by the time that I make a decision, the trade is gone. So do I want to wait that long? I don't want to wait that long. I want to go ahead and jump on this as soon as possible. And by having BloodHound and also having the trader plan tool, indicator reader, looking at all that information for me, if I really wanted to, and that is if I really wanted to, I could just go ahead and say, I am going to look only at one chart. I'm going to just look at this one. And I can be assured when this goes green here, that the other charts were in agreement. I can be assured here about 3 p.m. Yeah, that's 15, that's 3:28, that all the other ones were also in agreement. I can be assured right here at 14:47 that all the other charts were in agreement. So my 350.85 volume, my 290 ticks, my 870 ticks, and my 1449 ticks all agreed that we were in a bullish bias. Is that something that would be useful to you? Do you want to look at 15 charts every day, or do you just want to look at one and leveraging the tool that gives you the power to look at multiple charts? The single chart to visualize. Okay, trade CL. Okay, mm, I'll tell you what. Let me pull the chart that I use for oil. Okay, let me open that one. It'll take a little bit of time to open it. Okay, iCinDER trading oil. All sorts of stuff is going to pop up on the screen. So you like the arrows? The arrows that actually have to do with the V2 cycle. And it tells you when it's actually breaking out to the top or the bottom of a 1 standard deviation band. All this is loading right now. I tend to look at more information than is necessary. I have 5 screens, and needless to say that I'm one of those people that just love to put that information on the screens. But I like to also leverage things that make it simple for me to look at the market and trade. It's loading the rest of the data, so just bear with me. I think there's probably like 25 charts on my trading screen. Okay, here we go. You're seeing a lot of information here. On the upper right-hand corner, there's a chart of 12 minutes each of looking at the NASDAQ, gold, the bonds, and the ES. Um, Off screen is the tick charts are actually off screen. On the right hand side here, I look at 1440 minutes. I do like to put some tools in there. So you see some market geometry there. So I'm looking at a long-term, basically daily data. I had to put 1440 minutes because otherwise my indicator tool that gives me support and resistance here wouldn't work. And this lines at the top that tells me what the market traded for today. The 1615 volume is also the 1615 volume for oil up here. And I like to read it off of the simpler chart. Over here, I have bullish or bearish. Here's the indicator I was mentioning a while ago. It's actually a heat map internal market force. That's the one that's looking. Remember when well, it's kind of hard to remember some stuff, isn't it? That's the one that's looking at those 14 items, actually 13 items, and is giving me either a bull or a bear when this agreement's there. Some of the other stuff you see here, dots and opening range, and there are other things that I put in there because um, I can actually read all this stuff and I can see it. And I don't mind having all that information. I try to make it for the average trader to make it a lot simpler. The signals occur on this screen right here. And yeah, trend guide XP market. Okay, let me go ahead. I got to do a recalc over here. Refresh, recalculate, and then over here, let me go and reload script. Okay, here's the signal that occurred at 13:30 for oil. Let's go and look about 8 o'clock or so. Okay, that was the top right there. Not much. Let me remove a couple of things from here because I tend to put way too much stuff. I have opening range from ANA opening range pivots. I have an Elliott add-on there. And okay, BloodHound Partner Ultimate, Trader Plan Volume Analyst, and iCinDER Mike Fisher. This is an indicator that I coded. Why do I use so many things? Okay, I am not going to be the person that's going to be able to come up with every single indicator there is. There are a lot of other people that are smarter than I am, and they come up with tools that I find extremely useful. The volume analyst, I find it extremely useful. So therefore, I say, okay, I'm going to leverage that. Can I trade without it? Absolutely. But again, I only trade for maybe like an hour and a half or 2 hours a day, and then I'm done for the day. So here's a signal. The signal came off. This is the trading day opening range high, opening range low. Came back up. It touched yesterday's range here. Bounced off for that, and so now we're waiting here. There's a signal where at this point what happened? Well, let me go ahead and see because I got to look sometimes to see what happened. $11.83 ticks, 35.50 ticks, and 16.15 tick on oil, and a custom bar that I use. They all agreed in direction of the market. And since they agreed in the direction of the market, they painted over here at 13:30 a long signal. This is signal. Yesterday's high hits yesterday's high. Monster for that. Now hits the opening range high. Breaks through that. Continues. Now the three little dots here is not my software. So it's from Dan. It's a churn bar. Then it comes back down again. But the signal went dead here. When the signal goes dead, you gotta be ready with, you should have a stop. You could tighten up and you probably would exit right there on that bar. Now it opening range low, supports that, breaks through that. And we don't have any other signals. But this was a good signal. This over here was a good signal. From the entry, it went a little bit against you there, a little bit of heat, and then it took off. So the bottom line is try to leverage all the tools that you can find and build a system based on that. The heat map is actually very useful if you know how to use it. and it can tell you a lot of things. It can tell you really what's going on. At any point in time, if the three on the bottom are red, I know that the cycle is below zero. If they are green over here, the little dots, then I know that the cycle is slope up. If I, let's, the next three, which are squares, if they're all green, that means the point of control slopes 1, 2, and 3 cycles are up, positive slope. The next three, which are dots, is telling me the point of control versus the minor cycle up here, versus the intermediate and major are up. If it's yellow, that's just a little warning. The one that is the slope of the intermediate price is probably right at the intermediate, the point of control. So it's looking at all these things and figure, well, do I rather look at all this other information? Let me see, where are the point of controls? Oh, let's see what's going on with this here. Oh, let's see. Yeah. So you do all the let's see, and the let's see doesn't do a darn thing for you. A heat map is nothing more than taking the qualifying factors, testing them, and telling you, hey, was this a positive bias or a negative bias? From my perspective, that simplifies life. I did all the coding that you see here. I did that. I have another person that helps me out, and he looks at my code and it tells me where I screwed up. Okay, guys, we're gone for a long time here. Let me close this here. And let's go back and pop the other information here. So recap, if you want all that you saw there, then the price is $18.95. You will have training, and what I'm doing now at 11:30 on Mondays, a set of recurring meetings. It's almost taking people from the beginning that I don't know how to trade and I don't know what to look for, and explaining periodicity, explaining how visualizing the market with bar types can help you. And then building upon that and managing risk and doing all the other things that need to be done. Those were going to be, it's going to be rolled into a do-it-yourself type of system. In other words, learn on your own, and it'll be 9 to 10 hours of training for a reasonable amount of time. The goal here is not to break the bank. The goal here is to provide tools. A lot of them are not mine. I have to leverage what other people have done. And BloodHound is one of those that I have to leverage. It's to me, if I didn't have BloodHound, I don't know whether I would even be trading and with NinjaTrader. I was before that I was trading on an artificial intelligence system, and I did that for a long time. This allowed me a lot more flexibility than I was having before, and that's what I'm looking for. At this point, I think I'd like to turn it back to Shark. I thank them for the opportunity to present to you folks here, and if you need to contact me, you have the information there. Thanks again.
All right. Hey, thank you again, RJ. It was an awesome presentation, a lot of information, man. Looking forward to the follow-up webinar tomorrow. To all the attendees, thank you guys again for stopping in. The link is in the chat to sign up for tomorrow. I will also email it out early tomorrow morning with the recording from today's webinar. RJ just put it in the chat as well, right there. For anyone who has specific questions for Raul, just send them to support@iCinDERtrader.com. And any questions specifically for us over at Shark Indicators, support@sharkindicators.com. All right. Thank you again, Raul, and thank you guys for tuning in. For anyone who tuned in late, I will be sending out the recording early tomorrow morning. All right. You guys have a great day.